Yo, this is AJ Banjo, aka Ade, and this is the first video on this new channel, AJ the Artist Manager. With this one, I want to give all you guys a bit of a backstory as to who I am, my work in music industry, and why I love working with artists. Right now, I'm in the maker's room. Shout out to the people that making numbers, always good people. But let's get into it. Cool. So let's begin with how I got started in the music industry. For a long time, I didn't really have any interest in working in music. I was always a creative and I'd always existed in the creative space. Back then, it was through theatres, through acting. I was heading to the Brit School. That was my world. But then I found myself falling out of love for drama and theatre and acting, but I still loved, witnessing and being a part of passionate creatives. At the time, I had two friends who were making music at the time, and I saw the passion that they had for music, and I wanted to just support them. I had built up a small network of creatives that I thought I could use to help elevate what they were doing. And as I started, just organizing studio sessions, I would help with social media campaigns a little bit, um, and just connect them with sound engineers and producers. And once that started moving a little bit and we started getting some recognition as to, wow, these are really cold artists and they're doing their thing, it made me be a little bit more reflective as the role I wanted to play. And I knew that if I was going to take this step when it comes to management, at the time I didn't even know what management was. I knew I wanted to do it at the highest level. I wanted to make sure that I could be a support for these artists, for my friends. So I took a step back, and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this, a lot of the creatives know you, when you're starting on the journey of being a creative, working in this space, you are going to end up doing a lot of work for free. And for years, that's what I did. I was everywhere and anywhere. Any, open mics, I would go just to see what the landscape of artists in London were. I would join, these music networking communities, and it was a WhatsApp group for like music creatives that's kind of started my journey. An artist was like, I'm looking for someone to help, be part of my marketing team. Again, not paid, but they were like, hey, if you join, if you help out, you'll be on our weekly calls, da 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 da. And I thought this was a great opportunity to learn. And I'm super grateful um, for the opportunity because I did learn. I was working with an independent artist who was making some waves, and I got to see the scope of what it takes to release music, what it takes to plan and shoot, a music video. So that was my first step. After that, I knew that I wanted to elevate a little bit more. Then I got a role as a social media manager for an artist. Again, that one wasn't too bad. I They paid for my transport and my lunch. After that, I was like, I really want to again grow and learn more. I was kind of tired of the social media thing, and I wanted to learn more about the industry. Then I met up with the big bros at Finesse Forever, who, TK, SK, honestly, some of the coolest people, and really, I think, propelled me into the industry at a faster rate than I ever could have imagined. They had a music business course that I was a part of, and they really poured into me. They took the time to be really big mentors towards me and put me in spaces where I could meet other people, meet other creatives that could elevate me and elevate the work that I was already doing. From there, I became a general manager at Grind and Ghost Records. Um, Again, another opportunity where I was able to kind of assert myself a little bit more, a bit more seasoned in the game. I was working with, younger artists. I was also developing content strategies for them. But I knew the goal was to work at one of the majors. I just wanted to be able to have that major label experience that I could bring back to the artist I was working with. So that was the goal. And after a few years of trying, and those few years were full of so many rejections you wouldn't even believe. But after a few years of weathering the storm, of confronting the doubts, I finally got my role interning at Sony Music, and that was, one of the biggest learning curves I've ever experienced. Someone who had started the majority of their career working in the independent space, working with smaller artists, smaller budgets, to now at this international world stage of artists where, it ranged from developing, smaller local artists to some of the biggest artists in the world. And seeing the team there where it was so dialed in, everyone there knew what they were doing. Like I'm working with people who had, massive records that they had pushed, working with the biggest artists, and it definitely felt like I had now become the small fish in a massive pond. It was probably one of the hardest things I'd, ever experienced up until that point, but it really hardened me. It really broaden my scope as to what I wanted to do and what I wanted to bring to the artists that I was working with and to the independent space, because that was where my heart was, working with local artists, working with artists that were emerging and had the talent, but maybe not the funding or the team behind them. That's really where my heart was. After that, I got another opportunity at um, one of the other majors. And again, it was just that massive learning curve of working with some of the biggest artists in the world, some of the artists that I love. Um, it's crazy some of the coincidences that happen. I remember going when I was not even in space, not even close to working at a major, going into a little talk that the head in our Def Jam was doing, and I remember at the talk he was saying, "Hey, we just signed this new artist, da 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 da," and I'm thinking, man, I love this artist. It would be so sick to one day work with them. Fast forward a few years, and I'm part of the team. I say this to say that for a lot of the people who may be watching this, who may be in a space where they're confused as to what direction they should take, or the doubt is creeping in, because one thing you realize when you're trying to make it in this space is it's hard to get people to believe until they see the raw, until they see it at the highest level. Um, my advice and my word to you is to keep on going. If you have that vision for yourself, if you have that belief that this is where you want to go, just every day try to do something that just is a step in that direction, even if it's just literally thinking about where you want to be. To me, that is enough. That is taking a step. It is clarifying that vision a little bit more as to where you want to be. Um, and don't be afraid, or don't allow the fact that you may get rejected or it may take longer than you expect to get there be a deterrent. Because I remember leaving university and coming, I studied it up in Norwich, and coming back to London because I had an interview at one of these record labels and I didn't get it. And in retrospect, I'm so glad I didn't get it, because at the time I definitely wasn't ready, and I needed to graft and to work in the independent space and to do my own thing as well. And another bit of advice is do your own thing. Don't allow or don't rely on these bigger spaces to validate the work you're doing. Everything you're doing, whether it's a small blog, whether it's just an event that you hosted with your friends, all of that counts, and all of that is substantial. When you do finally make it into these bigger rooms, these are the things that you're going to speak of as examples. These are the things that sets you apart from all, you know, the other candidates that you may face. Being someone who has done things, who has taken initiative, big or small, I'm telling you, you know, there are ways to talk about things. Like if you start, YouTube channel and you only have 5 views, it doesn't matter. You started, something for yourself, and it's something that you can bring up and be proud of. But yeah, that was my journey from the independent space all the way to the majors. And through that, I learned a lot. So now that we got that intro and you know a little bit more about me, let's get into artist management. Now, being an artist manager, some of the questions I get a lot are, when is it the right time to get an artist manager? How close are you with your artist? And what does an artist manager actually do? Now, to answer that comes with a lot of caveats. The main one being it really depends on the artist, depends on the manager, depends on the goals. But fundamentally, an artist manager is there to support the artist in their business. Um, in this day and age, it also comes with being an A&R, being a social media manager, being a creative strategist. These are just the elements for a good manager to have in order to work with artists at every stage of their career. This is something that I've had to undergo and learn. And, you know, I didn't go into this industry wanting to be an A&R, but working with artists, that's a skill that I needed to adopt. Camera work, I needed to adopt. All of these things just make you a more well-rounded manager. What do we do? On a day to day, it is just handling the business of the artist, making sure that everything on the business side is handled so that they can focus on the creatives. For me personally, I want my artists to be solely locked in on the creative aspects of things, on the music, so that they can produce the best art possible and they can be fully invested in it. But that comes with building a lot of trust. In order for them to let go of the business side, you need to make sure that there's a healthy level of trust between you and you're aligned when it comes to the vision. And that leads to the question of, you know, when should you get an artist manager? I think it can vary. Some people say, you know, you need to be at a certain level and then the artist manager can take you forward. However, a lot of the artists that I've worked with are developing. And I think more importantly as to than to when should you get an artist manager is who should you get as an artist manager. And I think it's very simple. You need to have someone who believes in you and believes in your vision. If if you can have a conversation, you know, with your artist manager and they align with where you want to go, where you see yourself in 10 years, and they respect who you are as a person, whether, you know, you're going to be super active on social media and doing, you know, really leaning into the TikTok side of things and the, you know, the social aspects, great. But if you're not that type of person, your manager needs to be able to respect that and able to work around who you are. So if you're an artist out there and you're debating, you know, should I get an artist manager? I would say you shouldn't necessarily look for one. Continue to do what you're doing, and a manager will find you. You know, that could be your friend, that could be, you know, a family member that, you know, believes in what you're doing, is as engaged with your vision as you are, and they will kind of naturally just place themselves in that role. I know a lot of people who just had a friend who really believed in what they were doing and was like, I'm just going to go to your gigs and I'm going to record. And yeah, let me come to a studio session and maybe we can shoot some content there. It didn't come from, you know, I want to be your manager, but just they believed in you. They saw the vision, they felt the vision. Um, and then that can lead into some more formal management agreements. But starting off is definitely find someone who believes in you and believes in the vision and aligns with your character. Now, for the managers out there who are just starting off, who are working with, you know, a new artist, it's important again that you are a jack of all trades. Try to be as involved with the artist as possible, making sure that you can fulfill all the different needs. And I think if you're just starting off or you're working with an emerging talent, it is essential that you can do some of the fundamental stuff when it comes to content creation and, you know, booking studio sessions. And, you know, if you can produce or sound engineer, even better, because it's just, you know, cutting costs at the early start of the career. That's so important. The more that you can do yourself, the more you can have a more inbuilt team, the better. what does a manager do? They kind of just handle the business sides, but something that I've learned through my almost 7 years as an artist and manager is you also take on the emotional weight of your artist. It's important that you are ready for that and are willing to take that on, because you are working with someone who's putting their dreams on the line. This is especially for me, who works with a lot of artists, well, works with only artists who are like super passionate about the music, about, who they are as artists. That is a lot for someone to take on, to go out there and put themselves out there and not always get the results that they wanted to. Um, a story that I kind of tell managers in terms of how they should look at the work that they do with their artists. I remember early in my career, I had the opportunity to get some of my artists to perform at the Sony music offices, and it was their first time performing, and I could see how excited they were, and they performed and they killed it. We had like amazing feedback. Shout out to DJ Semtex. Um, it was just a great opportunity. I remember afterwards telling them, yo, this is amazing. This is like out of this world. But tomorrow, when you are having to, go back to the 9 to 5 or go back to, your regular work, this dopamine hit, it's gonna crash. And that can be a lot. It can be a lot to go from, a moment where you feel, damn, I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing in this world. My career is moving into a space, kind of back to the reality of, but this is currently where I'm at. It can be just disorientating. It can be a lot. And being aware of these things and trying to be there for your artists as they're navigating these emotions is essential, because I mean we know we all know horror stories about the industry and what it does to certain artists. So we need to be real about it and be aware of it and be there for your artists. Again, this isn't about fame. This isn't about clout. This isn't about, um, success. This is about building sustainable careers. And if you care about your artists, you're going to want to make sure that their mental is good as well. I want to throw that into this because I think it's important that artists, managers are aware of that kind of responsibility. It's not just about the music business. You need to really care about your artist. Um, yeah, so that's the role of an artist manager. That's what I do and what I pride myself in. I truly care about the artists I work with, and that's why this channel is going to be a place for artists and managers and creatives as a whole to come to learn more about the business side, learn more about what it takes, learn more about how to navigate the industry. So what can you expect from this channel? You can expect a new video dropping every week where we'll take a deep dive into artist campaigns. We'll be breaking down tips and tricks as to navigating the industry, as well as management insights. I really do hope you've enjoyed. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification, all of that. And welcome to AJ the Artist Manager. Hope to see you soon.